The unexpected guest. Marcus Rivera had always believed that the graveyard shift at Mountain Peak Communications Station was the most boring job in the world until 2:17 a.m. on a Tuesday, when everything changed forever. The storm had been building, all evening casting dancing shadows through the floor-to-ceiling windows of his security office, as lightning split the sky above the remote facility, nestled high in the Colorado Rockies. Marcus nursed his third cup of coffee and squinted at the bank of monitors showing empty corridors and silent equipment rooms. The only sounds were the steady hum of servers and the rhythmic patter of rain against reinforced glass. He was reaching for his logbook to make another routine entry when the air in front of his desk began to shimmer like heat waves rising from summer asphalt. Marcus blinked hard, assuming fatigue was playing tricks on his eyes, but the distortion only grew stronger until, with a sound like wind chimes caught in a gentle breeze, the air seemed to tear open, revealing a corridor of swirling silver light. What stepped through defied every law of physics. Marcus thought he knew she appeared humanoid at first glance, but her skin held an inner radiance that pulsed gently, with each heartbeat like captured starlight beneath translucent flesh. Her hair cascaded in waves of deep violet that seemed to move independent of gravity, and her eyes were pools of liquid amber that held depths he couldn't fathom. She wore what looked like a bodysuit made of the same shimmering material as the portal, but it hugged her form so perfectly it seemed more like a second skin for a moment that stretched into eternity. They simply stared at each other. Marcus felt his coffee mug slip from nerveless fingers to shatter on the concrete floor, the sound breaking the spell that held them both frozen. The woman, if she could be called that, tilted her head in a gesture so achingly familiar yet alien that Marcus felt something twist in his chest. She took a tentative step forward, her movements flowing like water over stones, and Marcus noticed she seemed to glide rather than walk, her feet barely touching the ground. "Please don't be afraid," she said, and her voice was like music played on instruments he'd never heard, melodic and layered with harmonics that seemed to resonate in his bones. "I mean you no harm." Marcus opened his mouth to respond, but only managed a strangled croak. He cleared his throat and tried again. What are you?" She smiled then, and the expression transformed her already ethereal features into something that made his breath catch. "My designation in your language would be closest to Zara. I am of the Luminary, and I have been observing your kind for some time." "Observing?" Marcus repeated weakly. "Like watching us. Studying." Zara corrected, moving closer with that same fluid grace. "Your species fascinates us, the way you connect with one another, the bonds you form despite your relatively short lifespans. We have been trying to understand the mechanisms behind your emotional connections." She was close enough now that Marcus could see tiny points of light moving beneath her skin like bioluminescent plankton in deep ocean waters. The sight should have been terrifying. Instead, he found it mesmerizing, beautiful in a way that made his chest tight. "Our research has indicated that humans often share a specific type of contact when forming deep emotional bonds," Zara continued, her amber eyes studying his face with scientific curiosity. "We have observed this behavior extensively through your communication networks and entertainment media, but we lack direct experiential data." Marcus felt his face flush as understanding dawned. "You mean kissing?" "Kissing, yes." She repeated the word carefully as if tasting it. "Our preliminary studies suggest this action facilitates the exchange of chemical and potentially psychic information between your species. We theorize it serves as both a bonding mechanism and a form of communication." She was standing directly in front of him now, close enough that he could feel warmth radiating from her luminescent skin. The air around her smelled like ozone and something floral. He couldn't identify his heart hammered against his ribs so hard he was sure she could hear it. "I would very much like to experience this phenomenon firsthand," Zara said, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "For scientific purposes, of course." Marcus stared at her, his mind reeling between the absurdity of the situation and the growing awareness that despite her alien nature, he was undeniably attracted to her. There was something about the way she looked at him with such genuine curiosity and openness that made him feel seen in a way he'd never experienced. "You want to kiss me," he said slowly. "For science. For understanding," she corrected. though something in her expression suggested there might be more to it than pure scientific inquiry. If you are willing, I have read that consent is paramount in your species bonding rituals. Lightning flashed outside, illuminating both their faces in stark relief. And in that moment, Marcus made a decision that would change everything. He reached up slowly, giving her every opportunity to pull away, and gently cupped her face in his hands. Her skin was warm and impossibly soft, with that subtle inner light playing beneath the surface. "Okay," he whispered, for understanding. When their lips met, Marcus felt like he'd been struck by lightning. Not painful, but electrifying in a way that sent shockwaves through every nerve ending. The moment of contact lasted only seconds, but in that brief touch he experienced something. Extraordinary images flashed through his mind, not his own memories but hers. He saw vast crystalline cities floating among distant stars, felt the profound loneliness of being part of a dying race, caught glimpses of the intense curiosity that had driven her across impossible distances to study humanity. And underneath it all, he sensed something that transcended species barriers, a genuine affection that had grown from observation into something deeper. When they separated, both were breathing. Zara's inner light had brightened noticeably, and her amber eyes were wide with wonder. "Remarkable," she whispered, touching her lips with trembling fingers. The data exchange was far more complex than our models predicted. There were layers of meaning, emotional resonance I hadn't anticipated. Marcus felt dizzy, not from the kiss itself, but from the lingering echoes of her thoughts and feelings that seemed to dance at the edges of his consciousness. That was incredible. Before Zara could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. Red lights bathed the security office as automated systems detected the unauthorized presence. Marcus grabbed his radio with shaking hands. "Control, this is Rivera. I have a situation in the main security office. Copy, Rivera. We're showing massive electromagnetic anomalies at your location. Evacuate immediately." Marcus looked at Zara, who had gone very still, her luminescence dimming as if she were trying to hide. "They're coming for you, aren't they?" She nodded reluctantly. "My people do not approve of direct contact. They will try to take me back to erase this encounter from your memory." "Like hell they will," Marcus said, surprised by the vehemence in his own voice. "You came here to understand us, right? Well, part of understanding humans is knowing that we don't give up on people we care about." Zara's eyes widened. "You care about me, but we have only just met." Marcus smiled, despite the chaos erupting around them. "Yeah, well, that's another thing about humans. We're pretty quick to form those emotional bonds you were studying." Outside, the storm raged on, but inside the security office, something had changed forever as sirens wailed and emergency protocols activated. Marcus Rivera found himself preparing to defend an alien woman he'd known for less than an hour, but who had somehow in that brief, impossible encounter become someone worth fighting for. The night was far from over, and whatever came next, Marcus knew his life would never be the same again. Understanding across Starsder. Rebecca Hayes had been dragged from her warm bed at Georgetown University at 3 a.m. by men in black suits who spoke in clipped sentences about national security and unprecedented xenolinguistic opportunities. Now, as her helicopter descended through the pre-dawn darkness toward the Mountain Peak Communications Facility, she wondered if she was still dreaming. The storm had passed, leaving the air crisp and electric with lingering ozone as Rebecca hurried across the tarmac toward the main building surrounded by her military escort. The facility buzzed with activity. Floodlights illuminated armed personnel establishing a perimeter, while scientists unloaded equipment from transport vehicles. Inside the main corridor, she was met by Colonel James Wright, a stern-faced man whose gray eyes held the weight of difficult decisions. "Dr. Hayes, thank you for coming on such short notice. We have a situation that requires your expertise," the message mentioned. "First contact," Rebecca said, adjusting her hastily packed equipment bag. "Is that actually what we're dealing with here?" Wright nodded grimly, leading her toward the security office. "Approximately 4 hours ago, our night watchman Marcus Rivera encountered what can only be described as an extraterrestrial visitor. She appeared through some kind of portal technology and has been attempting to communicate with him since. They reached the security office where Rebecca could see through reinforced glass windows. A scene that made her breath catch. A man in a security uniform sat across a desk from the most beautiful being she had ever encountered. The woman, if she could be called that, seemed to glow with inner light, her violet hair moving as if underwater while she gestured expressively with elegant hands. "They've been like this for hours," Wright explained. "Our universal translators can't make sense of her language, and she seems to only respond to Rivera. Something happened between them, some kind of contact that established a connection." Rebecca studied the pair through the glass, noting the way they leaned toward each other. The obvious rapport despite the language barrier. What kind of contact? Wright cleared his throat uncomfortably. According to Rivera's report, there was a brief physical interaction that resulted in some form of telepathic or empathic link. He claims he can sense her emotions, and she appears to understand his intentions, if not his words, before Rebecca could respond. The air in the corridor began to shimmer with the same heat wave distortion Marcus had described. Another portal was forming, but this one was larger. More complex geometric patterns of silver light carved themselves into reality as the tier widened to reveal not one but 3 figures stepping through. The lead figure was clearly of the same species as the woman in the office, but older, more imposing. His luminescence was deeper, more controlled, and his amber eyes held an authority that needed no translation. The 2 beings flanking him moved with military precision, their light dimmed to almost nothing. "Thane." The woman in the office gasped, her voice carrying through the facility's communication system. "You should not have." "Come," the older being. Thane stepped forward, and when he spoke, his voice resonated with harmonics that seemed to bypass the ears entirely and speak directly to the mind. "Zara of the Luminary, you have violated the Accords by making unauthorized contact with a primitive species. You will return with us immediately." Rebecca watched as Marcus Rivera stood up, his jaw set in determination. She's not going anywhere against her will. Thane's attention shifted to the human, and Rebecca saw something dangerous flicker in those amber depths. "Human, your species lacks the cognitive capacity to understand the complexities of interstellar law. This female will be returned to our vessel for neural reconditioning." "Like hell she will," Marcus said, moving protectively in front of Zara. "She came here to learn about us, to understand human connections well. Congratulations. You're about to get a crash course in what happens when you threaten someone a human cares about." The tension in the room was palpable as both species faced off. Rebecca realized this moment could determine the future of human-alien relations. She stepped forward, clearing her throat. "Excuse me," she said, her voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to commanding. "Lecture halls. Dr. Rebecca Hayes, Xenolinguistics Department, Georgetown University. If I may suggest, there might be a diplomatic solution here." Thane turned his attention to her, his expression unreadable. "You are a student of communication across species." "Among other things, yes," Rebecca replied, stepping closer to the glass. "And what I'm observing here suggests that Zara and Marcus have achieved something remarkable, a genuine interspecies emotional bond that could serve as the foundation for broader understanding between our peoples." "Impossible," one of Thane's escorts interjected. "The Luminary are empathically advanced beings. Humans are barely evolved beyond their primitive aggressive instincts." Marcus's voice cut through the comm system, sharp with indignation. "Primitive aggressive instincts. Yeah. Well, these primitive instincts are telling me to protect someone I care about from people who want to mess with her mind against her will. Maybe your species could learn something about loyalty." Zara placed her hand on Marcus's arm, and Rebecca watched as visible waves of calming energy passed between them. "Thane, please," Zara said. "In the brief time I have spent with Marcus, I have learned more about the nature of emotional connection than cycles of theoretical study could provide." "What you have learned," Thane replied coldly, "is contamination. The human's crude emotional responses have compromised your objectivity." "Or maybe," Rebecca interjected, "what she's learned is that connection transcends species barriers, that understanding comes not from observation, but from genuine interaction." She turned to address both groups, her mind racing with possibilities. "Thane of the Luminary, you speak of accords and protocols. But consider this: Marcus and Zara have achieved spontaneous interspecies empathic bonding, something your scientists presumably thought impossible. This isn't contamination, it's breakthrough. Thane was silent for a long moment, studying the pair. In the security office, Rebecca could see him processing the implications, weighing scientific curiosity against established protocol. The human may have a point, he admitted. Finally, the bond we are observing does appear to be genuine, bidirectional. Empathic resonance between species should not be possible according to our understanding of neural architecture. Colonel Wright chose that moment to step forward, his hand resting on his sidearm. All very fascinating, but we have protocols too. Earth's sovereignty means something here. The situation balanced on a knife's edge as three different agendas collided. Rebecca knew she had moments to prevent this first contact from becoming humanity's last. What if we proposed a controlled study? She said quickly. Zara remains here voluntarily as part of a joint research project. We study the bonding phenomenon together, both species learning from each other. Joint research. Thane repeated the concept, clearly foreign to him. Collaboration, Rebecca explained. Your people's empathic abilities combined with human intuition and emotional complexity. We could learn things neither species could discover. Alone. She could see Marcus and Zara watching through the glass, hope flickering in their expressions as they realized someone was fighting for their connection. The Accords forbid extended contact with developing species, Thane said, but his tone had shifted from absolute rejection to consideration. Then maybe it's time to revise the Accords, Marcus said, his voice carrying through the comm system. If your people are really as advanced as you claim, you should be smart enough to recognize when the old rules don't fit new realities. Thane studied the human for a long moment. Then something remarkable happened. He smiled, the expression transforming his austere features. You speak with considerable boldness for a member of a species we had classified as diplomatically immature. We're full of surprises, Marcus replied. That's kind of our thing. The luminary leader turned to his escorts, who had been standing in silent observation. Return to the vessel, inform the council that we have encountered an unprecedented situation requiring extended analysis. As the two beings stepped back through their portal, Thane approached the security office, his posture less threatening, more curious. Zara, you will remain here as our official xenocultural liaison. Marcus Rivera, you will serve as human representative in this unprecedented collaboration. Rebecca felt relief wash over her as the immediate crisis passed. But she knew this was just the beginning. As dawn broke over the mountains, she realized she was witnessing history. The first steps toward understanding between species separated by vast distances, but connected by the universal language of connection and care. In the security office, Marcus and Zara sat close together, their hands intertwined as morning light filtered through the windows, and for the first time in either species' history, the future looked bright. With possibility, the universe had just become a much smaller and infinitely more interesting place.